So, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this IWDS 2.0 update and training strategy for career planners. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. My name is Kirsten Bayer. I'm the Assistant Director of Communications from the Illinois Center for Specialized Professional Support at Illinois State University, and I will be on for technical support and moderation today. So, if you have a technical issue during today's webinar, please feel free to message me in the chat, or if you have any follow-up questions regarding the logistics of today's webinar, you can feel free to message me in the chat as well. Couple of housekeeping things before we get started. Today's meeting is being recorded, including audio, visuals, and other information sent. So we just want to make sure that you consent to this by automatically joining and that you are aware of that. And we just prefer any participant to participate via audio only and to disable their video camera, just so we ensure that nobody's video camera is showing anything that it should not be on the recording, just as a safety precaution. So if you could please have your camera disabled and only use your microphone audio when asking questions or making a comment or anything of that nature. You can also always type in the chat if you have any questions or comments. And Gina, Olivia, Lisa, and myself are happy to answer those and facilitate them either at the end of the webinar or throughout, if it's an easy question to answer. Make sure that you're signed into Zoom desktop client rather than through your browser version. This just helps your Zoom be fully capable. We do recommend that you use your computer for audio to facilitate participation, like we just talked about. Please make sure you mute your microphone when you are not speaking so that we can minimize any background noise on the recording and also have it not be a disruption for any of the other attendees. During the training, you can feel free to use the chat like we've talked about. And if you experience any problems during the webinar, you can message me, like I said, or I'm happy to put my email in the chat for everyone. Before we get started, we would love if you could introduce yourself and where your local area is at. And if you could just put that in the chat for us, we would love to know where everyone's located at today. All right, we have some LWIA 25s, 22, Northern Region, LWIA 15, 10, 7, LWIA 1, 3, 2, LWIA 24.
Looks like we have fantastic representation across the state.
Wow.
Glad you all are here.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, for typing that in the chat. And I'm going to hand it off to Gina Wells and Lisa Jones and Olivia Miller to get the presentation started.
Thanks, Kirsten. Hi, everyone. My name is Gina Wells. I'm a senior TA consultant with American Institutes for Research. I'm really happy to be with you all today, along with Lisa Jones from the Office of Employment and Training at the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, and Olivia Miller, the Information Technology Manager at Southern Illinois University, and of course, a critical member of the WorkNet team. Glad that we can have this conversation with you today. I do really hope that you'll use the chat, ask questions as they arise. We want to know what's on your mind, and anything that we can address while we're talking, we will. And then we have some time for question and discussion at the end as well. So if we go to our next slide, our goals for today are to give you an update on the IWDS 2.0 development timeline, let you know where that is in its progress, and start to talk about DCEO's training strategy and the funding opportunity they're putting together for WIOA Title I career planners, both during and after the transition to IWDS 2.0, and then to answer questions and gather your feedback on that strategy. We will do that according to this agenda that's on the next slide. So first, we'll kind of talk big picture, talk about where we are, situate this within the context of customer-centered service delivery. We'll describe the statewide training strategy. We'll have time for Q&A, and then we'll move on to next steps. So to share that vision for customer-centered service delivery and give you that update on the IWDS 2.0 timeline, I'm going to turn it over first to Lisa.
Great. Thank you, Gina, and thank you, Kirsten. So everybody, I think you all know me, Lisa Jones. I'm here at the Office of Employment and Training. I'm the Assistant Deputy Director over policy, legislation, and you guys know that I always say jack of all trades and master of none. So a lot of irons in the fire, and I'm happy to be here to share with you all what we think is going to be pretty exciting. So um, here we go. We've been really working as we've been thinking about the development for IWDS 2.0 and how we can center the system around customer-centered design and customer-centered service delivery. And we're really committed to making sure that we infuse customer-centered principles throughout the whole system. And to support that, we have been, as I mentioned, infusing customer-centered principles within IWDS 2.0 for the case management piece of the, of the system. We're really hoping that what this will do is really connect and focus and center the customer at everything we do, and recognizing that each individual has their own strengths, needs, and goals. We want to work collaboratively with the participants, and we want to focus on their strengths and really start thinking more about informed choice and what does that informed choice really look like from a customer-centered system perspective. And we also are looking at how do we streamline the system? What are things that we're doing that are creating pain points for our customers and, quite honestly, pain points for our career planners? So as we've been designing the system, we're really focusing on those principles. So is it a pain point for the career planner? Is it a pain point for the customer? And what can we do? What's within our sphere to make changes for that? As part of that, we're also shifting the focus of the system being the driver of our service delivery process, but really shifting it so that it supports policy and best practice for the customer. And so the training and what we're going to be talking about today is how we're doing that shift. So if you could do the next slide, please. Thank you. And this actually, I'm going to turn this over to Olivia. So Olivia, if you want to talk about our IWDS 2.0 purpose, that would be great.
Thanks, Lisa. So work is underway to enhance and upgrade the current Illinois workforce development system. IWDS 2.0 is going to use a more intuitive application that supports the state's case management needs, enhances user experience, as Lisa talked about, and serves as the new system of record. WIA Title I programs will use the latest case management platform beginning the summer of 2026. IWDS 2.0 will also utilize a more modern technology platform and have standards for accessibility, responsive design, resulting in a user-friendly interface for both our end-user customers we're serving and our career planners who are using the system on a day-to-day basis. The application will also focus on a more ideal customer workflow that Lisa laid out. And it's also going to meet the federal and state requirements for reporting and case management for Title I and trade, ensuring consistency, compatibility, and continue across the DCO workforce grants and programs as we continue to expand IWDS as we move forward. We can jump to the next slide. So we wanted to show kind of the updated development timeline, but also talk about how these various areas fit within the realm of the individuals who will be facilitating the training. So from now and through spring of 2026, we're going to be going through, we've completed initiation, we're in intensive discovery, we're doing development, we're continually sprinting and putting out new work. As we get feature sets developed, we move those into user acceptance testing. We have a core and extended LWIA groups who participate throughout the discovery and user acceptance testing as we cycle through those. As we start to identify trainers who are going to participate in the training, we will also introduce those folks into our discovery sessions and our UAT sessions so that they are a part of what we are building and getting their hands on it early and often so that they are familiar with the system and have a say in what they're going to be training on and have that experience prior to May when we start our more intensive training. So we don't expect that these trainers come in at the very end and have to learn this entire system. They're going to be involved from the time they're identified during our discovery, after we develop and put that into our user acceptance testing environment. They're going to be in getting their hands on it, providing feedback, and using that system. From May to June, we're going to be moving into our training sessions where we'll have these hands-on sessions that will be conducted for our trainers so that they can be trained to train our end users. And then July 2026, we will move into data migration and go live. Data migration is kind of happening throughout all of this, but that will be our final migration of data from the old system to the new before we shut one system off and turn the other on and make that transition to IWDS 2.0. With that, I will go ahead and pass it back to Gina to move us into the next section of the presentation.
Yeah, thanks, Olivia. So, Olivia alluded to the training strategy, and that's what we're going to talk about next, the system of support that's going to be put in place for career planners and how that's going to be delivered. So first, Lisa will give us the big picture of the training strategy.
Yes, thanks, Gina, and thanks, Olivia. So as part of this customer-centered design approach for training, we're really wanting to do a couple of things. We want to make sure it's a smooth transition to IWDS 2.0, and also that we're equipping career planners so that they can accurately interpret and interpret policy, become compliant, so that we're really focusing on compliance and some things that we've seen in the previous system. What can we change to ensure that we have less errors? And then also the big thing is the integration of policy. And we also very much are interested in expanding the capacity. And Gina, I'll talk about that a little bit more, but we're really thinking about this differently rather than just all having a central location for training, but how can we build capacity in the local areas to help support the training that needs to be done for about 900 case managers. So is what we're looking at, and that's going to be a big job, and we cannot do that without you. And I think this is a really exciting approach that we're taking around integrating the policy with the technical instruction on the case management system and using a train the trainer approach so that we can build collaborative training and expand capacity, featuring a network of local and regional trainers and state staff. And this approach, we're hoping, will help us reinforce how policy, practice, and technology all work together. So if you can go to the next slide. As I mentioned before, we're looking at the train the trainer model to expand the capacity. It certainly making sure that we're more collaborative, increasing our reach and promoting consistency, and then reducing costs and empowering employees. We're looking at funding approximately 15 regional trainers statewide. That may go up a couple. We're still having a few conversations about the number of regional trainers, but right now we're looking between 15 and 18, I think. These trainers would train a maximum of 20 participants per session, and we're looking at each trainer covering up to 80 career planners annually. And to do this, we are announcing probably at the end of next week or hopefully within the next couple of weeks. That's, fingers crossed, that we will be putting out the funding opportunity to support personnel, travel, facilities, and related materials to local areas for the training model that we're wanting to move to. And with that, I'm actually going to let Gina, we have we are working very closely with not just our WorkNet team, but also AIR and Gina Wells and her team. And she is going to get into more about how the training sequence is going to occur. So Gina, I'd like to kick it back to you.
Lisa. So wanted to share a little bit about what is the experience career planners will have in the training they'll receive for the transition into IWDS 2.0, and then what is the experience that trainers will get to prepare them to deliver that training. So of all the modules and things that IWDS 2.0 is going to do, there's three big buckets that career planners will interact with heavily. So that's the customer-centered services around intake and assessment, the work around career planning and service delivery, and then the work around outcomes, exiting, and follow-up. So the sequence of training for career planners will begin with an overview and introduction to IWDS 2.0, but deeply contextualized into that customer-centered service delivery approach, sort of the big picture vision, and then how IWDS 2.0 looks and feels and functions. Then training around the initial engagement and evaluation of clients in the intake and assessment phases. Then training around developing and delivering tailored career plans and what it means to put that into IWDS 2.0. And then finally, around ensuring successful outcomes and follow-up. And for each of these modules, in order to get at that integration that Lisa was talking about, if you look at the next slide, there'll be sort of a learning journey that career planners will move through. So first, understanding the customer-centered purpose of the information that we are collecting and putting into IWDS 2.0, recognizing the meaning and purpose of the data elements that we're collecting and what those mean for customers, not just what that means for policy compliance or sort of the regulations of WIA. Then understanding federal and Illinois specific policy, so really understanding the relevant policies, governing those data elements and the impact that they are intended to have for customers, understanding and applying best practices and case management around that strong customer-centered service delivery model, and then finally how to navigate and enter data into IWDS 2.0 and sort of using that system and all of its nuances. So the career planner will sort of have this experience of moving from the really big picture all the way down to, click here, type here, choose this data element here, troubleshoot in this way. So hopefully that will provide a really comprehensive, really grounded approach and leave everyone feeling confident as we transition into the new system. So that training for career planners, so again, there's about 900, throughout your local workforce areas. That training is going to begin at the end of Q2 of 2026. It'll be a blended approach that accommodates different learning approaches, and it'll have several key components that are going to be provided by DCEO. So in-person courses that are hands-on, that are going to be delivered by the regional trainers that we're talking about. So that'll be about 10 to 16 hours. Virtual training, which will be webinars from subject matter experts up to 12 hours that might particularly dive into specific technical pieces. There'll be self-paced online course that will function both as critical training during the transition, but also as enduring training around key policy and practice and IWDS 2.0 components, and can be used for new staff onboarding as we move beyond July of next year. There'll be instructional resources that Olivia and her team are developing, documents, desk aids, quick start guides, videos, all the things that you would need to help you feel confident navigating that technology system. And then there'll be virtual office hours for real-time support for folks during that transition. So as a reminder, if you have questions, don't feel like you need to hold on to them. Would love for you to throw them in the chat. We can help address them as they come up. But in the meantime, Lisa mentioned that there was funding, and so we want to talk more about what that funding is going to look like and some next steps for you all. So Lisa, back over to you.
Sorry, everyone. Thanks. So as I mentioned, we are looking at releasing the NOFO sometime in July. Again, mentioned, we're looking at 15. Right now, we've said 15 trainers, but as I mentioned, we probably will up that by a couple. And then we're looking at awards being made before September 30th. So that's what we're doing on, what we're kind of anticipating right now. And I just want to clarify something on the previous slide. Where we're talking about the key components provided by us, that's really us providing the material to the regional trainers. So we will, be providing all of the hands-on materials that you would need for in-person courses, for virtual training. We'll be developing, of course, in conjunction with people that are selected as regional trainers, developing the courses. We will be creating all the desk aids, quick start guides, and then any supporting documents or materials that would be needed for virtual office hours. So I just wanted to make sure that that was just clarified a little bit, because the way that it looks on the slide, it looks like we're going to be doing all of that. If you can go now to the next slide, Kirsten. We're going to talk a little bit about the criteria for the trainers, and I'm going to kick it back over to Gina, but as you will see, we do have on the working numbers some suggested structure, and I will let Gina get into that. So Gina, back to you.
Thanks. So Lisa and her team took a look at where career planners are across the state, and developed this grouping of local workforce areas that kind of evenly balance out trainers across the state and give a manageable workload for trainers, with a rough estimate of each trainer being responsible for about 80 career planners. So you can see these groupings, and these are the groups of local workforce areas who will be invited to work together to put together a proposal for funding. So you will work together in these groupings to identify individuals with skills and interests and availability. It ends up being about a quarter of an FTE of time over the next year or so. And I'll get into a little more detail about sort of how that lays out over each month in the next couple of slides. But you'll work together to identify individuals, and the key capabilities and skills that DCO is looking for these trainers are knowledge and experience. So a firm understanding of case management, not necessary to come into this being a policy expert. There's going to be a lot of opportunities to learn, but an ability and a willingness to address complex inquiries and problems, right? You don't have to know all the answers, but feel comfortable in helping to navigate complex questions. Passion and connection, so genuine enthusiasm for the subject, for the vision, for customer-centered service delivery, an ability to share relevant examples, strong communication and facilitation skills. We want these to be really positive, high energy training experiences. And as Lisa mentioned, the materials are going to be provided, but the ability to use those materials to create a really positive training experience. And then finally, effective facilitation. So cultivating inclusive environment, encouraging participation. This is going to be change for a lot of career planners. So being a person who can help walk that sort of change journey with folks and help that be a positive experience, and provide good support for that experience. So those are the capabilities, and the funding announcement is going to have more details about that. But those are the types of individuals that DCO is looking for to build this bench, this team of trainers across the state. And I'm looking through in the chat, Matt, I see your question about the back key. Maybe Olivia will be able to address that. And I see that Lisa was able to clarify that the launch date for IWDS 2.0 is anticipated for July 1st of 2026. Oh, and I see Olivia says, yes, the back button is going to work. So I hope that made both Matt and other people's day. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit more about the roles and responsibilities of the local area trainers, and how much work it's going to be, and when, and what kind of work it's going to be. So on average, across a year, it's going to be up to 32 hours a month, or 4 work days. It's going to be broken out like this. So from October of 2025 to March of 2026, development is going to be ongoing for the IWDS 2.0 system. So up to 16 hours a month will be spent in preparation, in orientation, and in engagement in the development process. Then from April to September of 2026 will be phase 2, which will be the most intense period of time. And I'm going to provide more details about each of these 3 phases. But during that intensive period, it's going to be up to 16 hours a week of work both in being trained and then delivering training. And then in phase 3, so October 2026 and beyond, which is here called kind of the maintenance training phase, and where this bench of trainers will be doing kind of ongoing training, not just on IWDS 2.0, but in critical policy components that career planners need. And again, each trainer is going to, think of each trainer as kind of being responsible for about 80 career planners. So I'm going to walk through each of these phases in a little more detail to give you a little more sense of the kinds of things that the trainers will be asked to do. So if we look at that first phase, the funding gets awarded. There's this kind of collaborative selection of the trainers. And in this phase, October 2025 through March, these trainers they're being onboarded. They're working approximately 16 hours a month. They're doing the group discovery, user group discovery and testing. The Olivia and her team of IWDS 2.0, they're providing feedback. There's some other things that are going to be happening during this time, policy updates, the development of the training materials, providing some feedback on that. And there may be a few trainings that we're able to do earlier in this process that they would be involved in, and of course, coordination meetings. So that's the phase 1 slide. Sorry, I forgot to say next slide. So Kirsten, if you could go to the next slide, so you can see this phase 1 information that I was just talking about. And there's going to be another slide that shows everything put together. So I'm going to keep moving, but you'll be able to see this again. So if we go to the next slide, sorry, actually, let me talk here, right? So this is just a reminder of, what were these developmental activities that trainers will be invited to join? So Olivia talked about sort of the discovery process for modules and then the user acceptance testing. So there are existing systems in place to engage local folks, as you know, in this process, and trainers, if they're not already in that group, will be invited into those existing processes. If you go to the next slide, then April to September of next year, of 2026, is that phase 2. So this is where the work will be most intense. So during this phase, the regional trainers are going to work up to 16 hours a week on a range of activities. Of course, they themselves will receive training to enable them to deliver the training. So the sort of the train the trainer support will happen early during phase 2. And then when they take on responsibility for training within their region, they'll be responsible for outreach and information sharing, scheduling, tracking, training, registration, and participation, reporting back to DCEO on trainings, sort of these administrative tasks, participating again in the state trainings and coordination meetings, delivering that in-person training, supporting learners who are participating in the online training, hosting regular office hours, and answering ad hoc questions. This is sort of the general work that's happening in this most intense phase. The actual training of career planners will probably start in June, and then we have the go live date in July, and there'll be ongoing support. Then if you look at phase 3, October 2026 and beyond, this is in this maintenance training. So delivering ongoing training related to WIA policy and practice, hosting regular office hours, answering ad hoc questions, and continuing to participate in statewide trainings and coordination meetings to make this system of this collaborative relationship between state staff and regional trainers, to keep that functioning and robust. So lastly, I want to talk about the kinds of support that trainers are going to receive to set them up for success in this role. So beginning probably in April of 2026, they will themselves get some very intense training. And again, this training won't be a surprise because they will have been part of the development work that's happening, beginning in the fall of this year and through to April. But that intensive training will be around WIA policy integration. So mapping policy to the IWDS 2.0 data fields, scenario-based discussions, comprehensive system familiarization, sort of pulling together the threads of what they've experienced up until then to ensure that they feel really confident with the IWDS 2.0 modules. We'll have some interactive learning methods to do that. There'll be some role playing and simulations, and then opportunities for hands-on application. And of course, there's going to be a suite of training tools for career planners, and they will receive training on how to deliver that and feeling really comfortable with all of that. So the total commitment there is going to be probably 32 hours with little flex either way, and 10 to 16 of that will be in person, with the goal that trainers are feeling really confident, that they have comprehensive knowledge, that they feel ready to apply and teach the policy, the practice, and the use of the IWDS 2.0 system, and then that they feel confident with those training and facilitation skills that they'll use during that process, and that they feel supported by the state and regional training team. So Lisa, you want to put it all together?
Yeah, sure. So thanks for that overview. I know we've given you guys a lot of information in the last 32 minutes, so I just want to recap this roadmap that we've put together. We will also, for those of you that are interested, we'll provide the slide deck. So between now and September, program directors, local board staff, and leaders should collaborate across assigned groups to identify a lead applicant, identify trainers, and then respond to the notice of funding opportunity. Final selection of trainers will be done in coordination with OET as part of the funding award process. As Gina mentioned, October to December of this year, trainers will onboard and begin engaging in the phase 1 activities. We expect that all trainers to be in place by the end of the year at the latest. January to March, trainers will continue with phase 1 activities. Then from April to September, we will begin phase 2 training activities. That's where we'll do the train the trainer. We'll start the train the trainer sessions. We'll schedule sessions, conduct career planning training so that we can meet and start the career planner training. Sorry about that. So we can go live in July. And that training and support will continue. So once we get up and going on that July 1st start date, the regional trainers and OET will not be leaving career planners. We will just really be getting started with making sure that there's an understanding of how the system works, how the policy applies to the system, and be there for support for providing ongoing policy practice and technical training in coordination, of course, with the Office of Employment and Training. We have a little bit of time now to take any questions or comments that you may have. So if you could put those in the chat, or Kirsten, can they come off of silent or mute?
Yeah, I think if they want to raise their hand,
Okay.
they can.
Okay.
Nope,
All
but
right. Cool.
hand
Okay. And
once.
Joel, we will send them to an email. We'll send out the slides in an email.
Yeah, and I think we're gonna put.
Liz,
I think we're gonna put the recording on WorkNet, right, Olivia?
okay.
Yeah, so we will post the recording and the PowerPoint on our IWDS 2.0 transition page, and Kelly Trimble will also send out an email to everybody who registered and attend today with links to those as well.
Questions, comments from anyone? This is an awful quiet group.
Maybe, well, oh, here you go. You've got a question there, Lisa, in the chat. Do you see it from LaDonna?
Hold on just a second. Does the funding cover 2 program years since the timeline is over 2 program years? Yes, it will, but I want to verify that with John. That's what we're talking about, right, John? I thought I saw John on here.
No, he's not on.
LaDonna,
Oh wait, John
oh,
Barr.
he's not. Okay.
He is.
Yeah, John Barr. I think that's right, LaDonna, but we'll confirm for sure. Other questions? Hey, Olivia, can you take this question? That's my understanding. Just for clarity, no data can be entered in IWDS 2.0 until after the official launch. I
Yes,
know
that
we're
is correct. We're going to
okay.
have a hard shut off. One system will go off at the same time another system is opening. We will not be dual entering data at any point.
Okay.
While we're waiting for a couple other questions to come in, we had a couple questions for you. So we're going to pull up 2 polling questions, recognizing that you are, probably thinking about this for the first time as we've been sharing it with you today, but we're curious, based on what you've heard so far, what you're currently thinking in your local areas, how confident are you that the right person in your local area or people are out there already on your teams who would be a good fit for this regional trainer role? That's the first question. And, we just kind of want your gut reaction right now. We're not going to hold you to this, but we were just curious. And then, Kirsten, can we run 2 polling questions at once? I think we can. And then
So we can't unless Amy built them like that, and she didn't build them like that. So
okay, so answer this first question. And then we will ask you a second question about whether you're thinking maybe that such a person might need to be brought on.
yeah, we have about 45 people that have answered out of 90 right now. So let's give it a couple more seconds.
And this isn't to prevent you again from putting questions in the chat or raising your hand.
There's a couple questions in the chat.
I think we took Cassie's question. Christy, thanks for sharing your enthusiasm for the online resources for new staff and maintenance training. I think DCO's vision here is to have, this kind of robust supportive system in place for the future. So Kelly's asking, so someone from our LWIA's region will be quote unquote hired to train everyone on our region on IWDS 2.0, and we're going to collaborate to figure out who that will be, correct? I think, Kelly, that is a pretty good summary of what we're talking about. I think in the groupings that we shared in the slides, and which we're going to show again in the next slide, LWIAs will come together to identify folks who will fill that role. And then we'll work with DCO to kind of confirm that. And then they'll be able to charge some of that person's time for the training.
I did go ahead and end that poll, Gina. I don't know if you want to share the results or if you just want to go to the next poll.
Well, let me wait first and see, Lisa, if you wanted to say anything else about Kelly's comment. Oh, can you come off mute, Lisa?
Sorry about that. Yes, no, Gina, I have nothing else to add. That was a great response.
Okay. And then Ashley has a comment in here. Will the trainers be quote unquote nominated for the role, or will they have to apply?
I think that's up to the LWIAs as you get together, if you're going to nominate or if they're going to have an application process. And good question from Damar. It isn't our intent to just do this for 2 years and drop the ball on it, but I will, in all honesty, I think we're going to have to see what the funding looks like from the feds. So right now we're playing this by ear. So, it is, again, it's not our intent to do this for 2 years and then say, oh, sorry, now we're just going to go back to having one central point of contact. But DCO funding would increase wages of the current. Also, is it expected that DCO funding would increase wages of the current FTE for the, I think that is a decision for the local areas. That's not something I'm not sure that we would talk about or make a decision on. But I'll have these fiscal questions, have John take a look at them. And if they're different than what I've said, we'll let you guys know that.
I think generally, Lisa, the idea is that this person, that like duties would be reshuffled so that about a quarter of this person's time is freed up to take on these training responsibilities. Not that the person necessarily needs to work 125%.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I misread the question. Okay, thanks for clarifying that, Gina.
Well, I think I'm not sure which way Damar meant it, but I just wanted to.
What happens if an area designates more trainers than has been allowed, but local areas identify individuals? Well, we're only going to pay for a certain number of trainers per region. So you would have to make a case that those additional trainers would be needed. But I'm not saying that we wouldn't do it. I'm just saying that you would really have to make a case for it.
So while we're waiting for more questions, just popping back to our polling questions. So it looks like folks are feeling somewhat too very confident that they have existing staff as part of their organizations who would be good candidates for this role, which is great. We're going to pull up our next poll, which asks kind of the opposite question. And it's totally fine if you both feel somewhat confident that you have the right people and you also feel like you might hire. We're not going to check to see who answered these questions how. But now we're asking, based on what you heard today, how likely is it that you think you might need to hire someone to fulfill this trainer role? So go ahead and answer that question. And maybe while you're answering this polling question, we might move on to the next slide because it looks like we don't have any other questions right now, Lisa. So do you want to, you guys can move the polling question so it's not blocking your view.
Okay, great. So just want to thank everyone again for being with us today. Just to reiterate, we're anticipating that the NOFO is going to be released in July. We would ask, though, that you start thinking about who your trainers would be if you have to hire, if you've got somebody that you can shuffle around and they can devote 25% of their time. I would start coordinating with your assigned LWIA groupings to identify a lead applicant. If there's a concern, just certainly reach out to us. Monitor our communication channels. We'll get the slide deck out and keep you apprised of when we will get that NOFO out, as we anticipate that it would be in July. So with that, if there are no more questions, we will give you all 15 minutes of your time back today. And please send any questions to me if you think of any after we jump off the call. I can, funnel them to the right folks so we can get you some answers back if I can't get them myself. So again, thanks everyone. We really appreciate your time.